So when you listen to these guided meditations, try to listen from a place of total innocence. Because what I'm pointing to here has nothing to do with your past. It has nothing to do with a technique. It has nothing to do with anything you learned about meditation or spirituality. It has nothing to do with accumulated meditative experience or insights. What I'm talking about can only be experienced as it is right now, and only as it comes into experience. There's nothing to anticipate, because anticipation is control, and control is an illusion. So we're unguarded. This is what it means to stay in fidelity with your immediate experience. It's raw, simple, and just as there's no need to bring anything into this experience, there's also no need to do anything with it. We don't need to analyze it after the fact. We don't need to compare it or judge it. Because when we analyze or compare or judge, we're trying to do the impossible. We're trying to turn this immediacy into something it's not, into something we can handle, manage, or understand. But it's too alive, too immediate, too dynamic to manage or control, or even to put in a context. So we're left with a very simple stream of experience. Wherever our attention is called, it's already there. So if there's sound, it's already there. Just that. Doesn't matter if the sound sounds like it's in one place or in every place. We don't need to evaluate or judge that. Just hearing. We don't need to judge the sound field and decide which part of it we like and which part of it we don't like. When we think part of the sound field is annoying or problematic, we convince ourselves that's something in the sound field, but it's not. Sound is innocent. And it doesn't differentiate in the way our mind tries to make it appear that way. It's a whole experience, unified, fluid, just hearing. Sometimes it almost feels like we're waiting in the background to look for something that's wrong in our meditation or doesn't fit in, like the ringing in our ears or a sound outside. But that doesn't reside in the actual sounds. The sounds are innocent. That feeling, if it's there, is just a little bit of habituated tendency to run back into the mind. Seeming safe place of thought, evaluation, judgment. From its perspective, the sound field is really unpredictable, unknown. It could even be perceived as unsafe because we don't have any control over the sound. But if we just recognize that tendency to run back into judgment, division, etc., pat it on the head, and return to the full immersion of sound, then we start to trust immersion. We start to trust the sound just hearing. Nothing more. Nothing added. When there's just this sound field, we can exert zero effort. There's nothing we need to figure out about it. Is it above, below, behind, in front? None of that matters. Is it quiet or loud? None of that matters. High-pitched or low-pitched? No need to evaluate that. Is it simple or complex? No need to evaluate that. So just sound. Just the sound. It's very easy and very common to believe that meditation has to be more complex than just hearing. But it's just not true. Anything we do, any technique we use, is just a waypoint until we can actually fully sit in presence, fully absorb, or let presence absorb itself into itself. There's a point where there's no technique to it. The hearing is all there is. This takes trust. And that doesn't mean trust in a technique. It doesn't mean trust in a teacher. It doesn't mean trust in a tradition. It doesn't mean trust in your past experiences. It doesn't even mean trust in yourself. All of those are one form or another cognitive. It takes trust in the sound, just as it is. in the hearing. So at first it can feel a bit raw, unpredictable, even a bit restless. But that's just the feeling of letting go of our habituated thought processes. None of that is actually intrinsic to sound. The sound is clear, innocent, without weight or substance, location. We may even try to visualize sound. Have a mental image of the space, location or direction of the sound, or the space in which it's being received or heard. The body, the head, the ears. All of these are just mental images. They're not intrinsic to the sound. When we're able to see past that, or hear past that, and there's just the hearing, sound hearing, then sound doesn't sound quite so much at a distance, more intimate, neither inside nor outside, but not out there somewhere exclusively. The mind makes it appear to be out there. Thoughts, division, which can only be found in thoughts. So then, where is sound becomes a very juicy investigation. Now, there's no need to ask that question if it just leads to thoughts or analysis or thinking, even thinking about techniques or doctrine. Then the question really isn't helpful. Just hearing is better. But if we've come to this place where we can pretty fully give ourselves to the hearing, then feeling into where it actually is, non-cognitively and non-spatially, without a spatial image, can lead to a deeper intimacy with sound. Just remember, the answer is always the sound. It is the sound. And the qualities of the sound will clarify in a sense and deepen in a sense, but don't make notes. This is important. If you're making notes, again, just go back to just the sound. Disidentify from those judgments. What I'm pointing to is more like intrinsic quality, texture. Intimacy is the word that comes a lot because it's that. Intimacy like a baby feels the world. It doesn't feel a world outside. It doesn't feel a body inside. It doesn't have a sense of self. It's just intimacy. It's all the senses, the five senses, and probably undifferentiated consciousness, or almost certainly. But those senses aren't experienced out there. And this is what we're missing as thinkers, beings of selves, grown-ups. people, we totally forget this because it's an instinctual, physical experience, the experience of intimacy. And often we'll taste this even before awakening, randomly, before any interest in awakening or spirituality or truth or dharma. Sometimes it happens with a hallucinogenic drug experience. Sometimes it happens after a tragedy. Sometimes it happens while feeling in love with somebody, being in physical communion. And sometimes it just happens randomly. It can happen in nature. It can happen for a very short time, but it has a very profound effect, and it's the experience of intimacy. People will sometimes call it oneness or infinite love or universal love, but that's already the mind applying it to the human dimension, what we think we want out of it and so forth. But the raw experience, which isn't an experience because there's no split, that's the intimacy. It's just pure experience. And it's something we knew many, many years ago. But we forgot it because we started remembering what seems like ourself. And that made all the difference. But it's still here in all of us. And in my estimation and experience in this area, it comes full circle, or it returns with clear realization of non-duality, unbounded experience. And the senses are your gateways for that. So that's why we investigate sound in this way. So all of that is a bunch of talk, unnecessarily complicated, because we have pure hearing, sound hearing. Nothing apart from the sound, hearing the sound, just the sound, hearing. Now, one challenge with this can be if you've learned about it through doctrine or intellectualized it. A simple practice to make sure you're actually in the experience, not you, but the experience is clear, is to sort of notice there's, if you have this experience, there are two things that seem to be going on. One is sound, and one is hearing. If those feel any different to you at all, that's fine. But I would suggest giving this a try. Moving your attention to the feeling of hearing, wherever that is, without analysis. Just move attention to the hearing part. Feel it for what it is. Listen into its nature. And then move your attention to whatever feels like the sound. They might feel like two forms of the same thing, or they might just feel like they're a little bit slightly apart somehow in experience. But the very act of just feeling intuitively into each of these poles, if they're there, and being willing to drop all conception, mental images, labels, can be revealing. It should be enjoyable. It shouldn't be a struggle. It should not be analytical. So if you can just sort of feel into where and how that is, wherever there's hearing and wherever there's sound, and move your attention slowly between, as if you're looking for, is there a boundary between? Is there an edge? Does one become the other? How would that appear in the sound itself? A boundary or a barrier? An edge or a location or a distance? Now, you don't have to do any of that. Just sound hearing is plenty. More than enough. And one other thing I want to say about this is, I know it can appear as if I know something or I got some knowledge or some special information, but in all honesty, it comes from the sound. It comes from the sensations. I don't know how to explain that, but that's where it is. Your teacher is there. It's better than any doctrine, better than the words of the most realized people in the world or in history. It just is. That's where they got it, whether they know it or not. So this means you can trust immediate experience fully if you choose to, which is sounds, just hearing. Which is also sensations, just feeling. Which is also movement, just movement. Which is also whatever we call seeing. Pixels and forms and shapes and shades. That's it. No need to overcomplicate it.